Good evening. And if you're just tuning in, you're listening live to 105.3 FM out of Mississippi and 107.7 out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana. And this is the Angel Rock. We are being broadcast through UFO Paranormal and United Public Radio Network, as we like to just call it, UPRN. And I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. I am a host of two shows on the network here, the Angel Rock here on Monday nights, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then Thursdays, I co-host The Thing at the Foot of the Bed with my very good friend who is an Angel Channel, exceptional medium, and he's an all-around funny, awesome guy, David Hansel. And that's 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And sorry, my dog's thinking she's going to bark, so hopefully she doesn't. Of course, so I did tell you guys last week, before I tell you a little bit about myself. Yes, people can hear you. Hello, Emmy. Sorry, she made me lose my train of thought. I apologize. Sometimes that happens, you guys. This isn't a live show. That's where I was going. I did tell you last week that my wonderful guest, who I'm going to introduce you to in just a few seconds, she's over in the UK. So we're recording this today on Monday, just a little bit earlier. So I am a Canadian psychic medium. I'm a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher and mentor, and registered nurse. I'm also a budding animal communicator. I'm well versed in near-death experiences, having had one as a toddler myself, and I've studied them professionally and personally for over 40 years. And lastly, I always say we never went looking for it, it found us, but I'm extremely well versed in the paranormal, having lived in a haunted house, the house before where I'm living now, and we shared our experience on the Travel Channel's Paranormal Survivor, Season 4, Episode 9. Now, if you like what you see, please like, share, and subscribe, and tell all your friends. We are up to, I believe I was told, 40 hosts on this network. We stream multiple shows daily, live, 7 days a week. And when we're not streaming live, the archive server kicks in and randomly picks shows over the last 25 plus years that we've been around. And there really is something for everybody here with the variety of hosts and shows that we do have on this network. Also, if you'd like to watch us on your TV, you can. We have our own TV channel. What you're going to do is go into Roku. It's an app, or I believe it's on, what is it called? The Fire. My brain's not working today, guys. You're going to have to, very little sleep. We'll probably mention it later, but not for fun, and I'm not ill. Just had to pick up a family member. That's all. I didn't know what time they were coming back in. Anyways, you go to the channel store, and you're going to go look for UFO space P, as in paranormal, type that in. Then a drop-down list will come down. We're about the third or fourth one down, and you're looking for UFO space paranormal and United Public Radio. Now, normally I would tell you where to go to comment, and you can still comment while you're live, but I want you guys to hear this because we did film it today. It's not a repeat. This is a brand new show. You won't see how I normally answer your comments and questions, but feel free to leave them down below, and we can check them out. Debbie says she's on Facebook, so if you guys tag her in it or anywhere else, where she's on social media, I'm sure she probably will pop in to say hello to you or answer it. I'm saying that before asking her, but we're here to talk about her book. So let me read her bio for you. Do I need my glasses? Let me see. No, I don't. So my wonderful guest this evening is Debbie Sellwood, and she's a mature woman with a grown-up family. She practices as an astrologer, and she did put this website down here. I'm going to have to remember to tuck that one in when I write the write-up for this, because I promote the show, Debbie, so you know, all over every social media platform. So it is www.professionalastrologers.co.uk, and it will be in the banner where I promote it. And she's taught this subject. She's also a flower essence practitioner and a member of, and I'll write that website down for you as well, and has been a longstanding committee member of this association. Her interests are in well-being, natural healing and nature, things that are right up my alley. And for many years, she's been a student of ancient wisdom, teaching spiritual, metaphysical subjects. And she is a published author of 2 books, but we're going to be talking about her book, You Are a Frequency: How Personal Vibration Influences Health, Well-Being, and Development. Welcome, Debbie. I'm so glad you're here today.
I'm really delighted to be with you, Lorilei. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
I know. Well, I asked you a little bit about few questions beforehand. I hope I didn't put you on the spot, but if people got questions about the book, right? You're the one. I know you'd be best suited to answer it. But I'm going to start at the beginning. I always do this with people. So, what got you interested in the field that you're in today?
I guess I've always been quite sensitive, and I've always had the mind that's quite inquiring. So that's what started me off. First of all, I became an astrologer because I was really interested in people and the way they tick. I was originally had a career in IT, but at some point I made a transition to astrology and found that really rewarding because I can help people to understand who they really are and what they, if they're open to it, maybe what their spiritual path is, their soul path, if that's their interest, and who they, what their skills and their talents are, and also from a sort of well-being perspective, over not particularly on a medical perspective. I'm not a medical astrologer, but sort of from an overall well-being. I mean, if you're happy in your mind and what you're doing in life, then that's going to affect your well-being. I became a flower essence practitioner, which is basically working with the energies of plants. Mm-hmm. And flower essences help to transform any sort of emotional issues or mental thoughts that are not to our best advantage. I could speak, a long time on that, but really they do so many different things that are very helpful to us, because I felt that I wanted to offer something else as well as being able to, as an astrologer, but also I can help people as an astrologer to see what if they have difficult times, to help them understand why that might be, or why what they're learning from it, or when that might end. But I can't really help them get over maybe they have grief, or they're really traumatized, or carrying a lot of emotional burdens that they would be better without. So that's how I became a flower essence practitioner. And I was just my spiritual path has just always been carrying along the background. So really, it's sort of like there were lots of things in my mind. So eventually, I decided to put these things together into a book. So I think that's
no, I love it. I was just listening to you because the big buzzword that people use is light worker, right? When you're working in energy healing, or what I'm doing is, I do healing and things like that. I'm very passionate about end-of-life care, including grieving and grief and things like that. I always say I've been so deeply blessed to be there hundreds of times at the beginning of life, having worked in the NICU, labor and delivery, maternal newborn. And then before I hurt my back, I was working out in the community, and I was doing a lot of technical stuff at that time, setting up IV programs and central lines and all the technical stuff you'd see in a hospital. But where I really found, and I had great passion for, was palliative care and end of life. And as I say, the person, while they're here, journeying their way back home and being there. But there's also the grieving that goes with it. And a lot of people don't understand it. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because the other thing I was going to say too, I find that either us in the light worker field are fantastic at astrology, we all know it, or there's people like me that are aware of it, know a bit about it, but if somebody asks me an astrology question, it's like, nope, I'm not the person for you. I can connect you to someone. Now you're another person I know too that does astrology, so that's great. But with the flower essences, I do know about those. That's why I was really excited you were coming on. The name of your book and the info in there went, oh wow, this is right up my alley. I'm not an expert in it, but we have used the Bach flower remedies. I know that's not the only kind because I have a son with severe autism. He is now 26, and with no disrespect, is very much like that precocious age of a 5 to 7 or 8-year-old. When he was younger and nonverbal, and you know, he had a rating scale. When he was at a 5, like he couldn't even hear you. And I know that we use things like rescue remedy. I've used it with my pets, but I don't want to lead people astray and let them think that's all that's out there, because I truly believe that everything we need has been provided for us on this planet in the way of plants. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about that.
I totally agree with what you say. I think that every plant, every flower has a certain vibration that that seems to resonate with a certain feeling that we have. And that is incredible. And it's just, when I first started to work with flower essences, I was just, blown away, really. My mother introduced me to flower essences when my children were teenagers, and that was a very helpful, and they were the Bach flower remedies.
They were, okay. Yeah, there's 2 different ways. It's like chakras, right? And us North Americans say it Bach, and you say Bach.
Sometimes I say Bach. You
could say chakras and chakras, right?
Yes.
Potato, potato, tomato, tomato, right? It's just
it's all good.
Yeah, we're talking this language.
But there's so many. I mean, that's always a good standard set to have, those remedies, the Bach flower remedies, Bach flower remedy. But there's just so many now, just hundreds across the producers across the world. In fact, in Canada, there is a lady called Sabina Petit, and she's in, what's the island off of near Vancouver?
Prince Edward?
Off Vancouver.
Victoria or
Vancouver? Yeah, I think that's where she is. Yes, and she has a wonderful set of essences. If anybody, or in the US, there's lots of the Alaskan.
I didn't know that. I would love to. So she had. Do you know the name of what, or you just look up Canada and flower essences?
Pacific. They're called Pacific. Because her range is called Pacific.
I think I have heard of that. Yeah.
And she produces not just flower essences, but she produces essences from sea creatures. And when I say that, people think, they don't understand that it's just the energy from the sea creature. You don't have to harm the sea creature in making the essence.
Explain a little bit more about that, because you're the first person I've had on this. I was very excited. We've been trying to plan this, I think, since the end of February, beginning of March. And it's not because of timing. It's just that my calendar is really booked ahead for anybody that's listening or watching. But I'm sure there are a lot of people that have never heard of flower essences, why you would use them. What does it mean by the vibration of the plant, if you don't mind me asking?
What does it mean by the vibration of the plant? Well, everything is energy. And that's really what my book is about, how everything is energy and vibrating at a certain frequency. So as I say, a certain flower is going to have a certain vibration that's going to be healing on an emotional level of maybe, I don't know, maybe feeling frustrated, or maybe feeling sad, or something like that. And it's the same with the sea essences as well.
So people, I know I can hear it already, are going to say, well, how do they make it then? That's where I was going. I should have said it better.
Yeah, flower essence producers are people who are really sensitive and being able to intuit the message from the flower or the tree, or actually some essences are made from the environment, a special place, in a sort of a sacred site, let's put it that way, or something that's really a special place in nature. So they're able to tune into that, and it's basically a process of attuning to those energies. Essences are made by, traditionally with a flower, they're made by cutting the flower and putting it in spring water, and then putting that solution in with brandy and creating what is called a mother tincture.
Yeah.
And then other essences are made out of that. But that's the traditional way of making a flower essence. More and more producers now are using the attunement method, as I say, just being able to relate to the flowers and understand. So they still have their bowl of spring water, and they will be tuning into that particular place in nature or where that animal is. I mean, people make dolphin essences, so they're obviously out in the boat.
Oh, I'm so excited. I got to hear more about that in a minute, but go ahead, continue.
I don't know exactly, but I imagine that they're out in the boat and they're right up close to the dolphins, and that energy is transferred into the water. It always sounds far-fetched to people who are not familiar with this, but water holds a memory.
Absolutely.
So that's why that can then be made into dosage bottles for people to take or sent all around the world to anybody who wants to buy what we call
I have a question, and I forgot to tell you before we started. If it's my regular audience, I know. I don't know why, but I have a little bit of a delay. So if I accidentally speak over you, I don't mean to, and I apologize. It's only a second or two. But what I wanted to ask you, because I've never been able to ask somebody, they've explained, like I understand about energy, and you've done it so beautifully because they haven't been as in depth. But what's going through my mind, for example, if I made sun water or moon water, like at the full moon or a new moon or whatever it is, a lot of times I'll use crystals, and the crystals don't even have to be in the water. They could be very close to it, or we can use special Reiki symbols or what. That's what I'm wondering, how, or do they just sort of, because everything is energy, I'm trying to picture this. So do they maybe put their hand out to whatever they're, they say the dolphin swimming around the boat. They don't touch the dolphin, but they, you know what I mean? They're kind of the conduit, and then they send it into the carrier liquid.
I'm not sure because I haven't done that myself, but I would imagine, and everybody is probably different in the way they make essences anyway. They have their own methods of doing so. But yes, generally along those lines.
Mm-hmm. And they work. For anybody that thinks this sounds crazy, because, for example, when my son was at a 5, like I explained, and sometimes raging for hours, another one that would work, and I worked with a naturopath and a homeopath. And just to make it clear, everybody, we are not diagnosing. And even though I'm a nurse, I can't diagnose. Okay, but this is just my personal experience. But my son, we did use Rescue Remedy, which helps with anxiety and anger. You know this, but for a listening audience. But also, she found this, it was rare. I used to have to order it in, and it was like a homeopathic remedy. So for people wondering, it looks like little balls, or at least over here, and it's almost like a sugar taste, but it was tuberculinum. And oh my goodness, Debbie, I swear, my son could be raging, and I would get him to take these because it was hard getting them into him. They're very tiny. It was literally like watching a balloon deflate. If the anger was this big, like this giant balloon about to pop, he just slowly just calmed right down. No side effects. And for anybody that doesn't believe this, my son didn't know what this was. He didn't know how it worked. It just worked. And so do the flower essences too, right? Are you still there?
Absolutely.
I didn't know if we had
I mean, they're slightly different homeopathy and.
No, but what the reason why I used it, like we use them in conjunction with the Bach flower essence, which was called Rescue Remedy. And sometimes I didn't have the tuberculinum, so I would keep one or the other, and both of them worked very beautifully with them. And the reason why I'm saying this for people, I know you know this, but for people listening that think this sounds crazy, it's not crazy. And my son's situation is not unique. Thousands and thousands of people have used these, right? And it used to be quite commonplace, wasn't it? Before we went into modern medicine.
Absolutely. I think they've been used in ancient civilizations, and certainly the Australian Aborigines would use them. But I think Dr. Bach in the 1930s, he was the one that sort of brought them to the fore again.
Yeah.
He was very intuitive, and he wanted a very natural method of medicine, and so he was the one that was responsible for reintroducing them.
Mm-hmm. Well,
we're all very grateful for.
No, absolutely. I mean, yes, absolutely. Because, for example, even though I come from a Western medicine model, we'll say, my back's been hurt for quite a few years. So I have not been able to go back to active nursing. But the point I'm sharing this is I started to realize that I wasn't quite getting the answers, and nor with me having chronic pain or anything. So I started looking into homeopathic and naturopathic remedies. And ever since then, and again, for people listening, not diagnosing, not telling people what to do, but if I can, and no, I don't think I'm a doctor, but I will treat my family at home. And I do a lot of research. My sister-in-law is actually a naturopathic doctor. I don't bug her all the time, but once in a while, if I really need some feedback. But I prefer to try something that's a plant-based or is natural, because I mean, you have to do your homework. You can't just run out and eat leaves, obviously, for people listening. But there's plants out there that can really heal us and really help with a lot of, medical issues. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think it will become more so, because we're entering into an age which is more awareness, or an increasing awareness, that everything is energy. We are energy. This is in my book, I write extensively about how we're much more than just a physical being, and that we have other what we would call subtle energy bodies which surround us, and they're connected with our emotions and our feelings and our thoughts. And it makes perfect sense that when something is out of sync with these bodies, then we need to be working on an energetic basis to bring it back into alignment.
So, without giving too much away, but what are some of the things that, if you put that together, so somebody's hearing this and recognizing mind, body, soul, I'll usually talk about, right? Including, what you're talking about in your book, but what kind of modalities or things can people do? Like I said, I'm not asking you to give everything away in the book, but just a few things that they might be able to do to help get back in alignment.
Well, what to my understanding, and what I write about in the book, is that when we have emotions that are not to our best interest, we've all been hurt, and lots of us have been through different traumas and things like this. And it's very difficult, because we tend to hang on to these things.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we have negative thinking. We may have been, as a result of our childhood, we may have been experienced conditioning, programming that was not helpful or worse. And so it's really difficult, because we need a completely, to let go of these things is very hard. But what can happen is, if these imbalances can show up as energy imbalances, energy blockages. And so we have, like, as I explained, we have in the subtle bodies, we have like an emotional body and a mental body, and then we have an etheric body, which it's an absolutely mirror image of the physical body, and everything that happens to the etheric, it will show in the physical body. So the etheric body is where that we need to really keep the energies, releasing any of these old energies, because we have, as we call, life force energy, or many people would call that prana, needs to move through our subtle anatomy, particularly the etheric body. And if it finds that it's got blockages, if it finds that we're holding on to things, or our thinking is not good, then it doesn't have that clear channel to go through our subtle anatomy. And over a period of time, this can this can maybe result in problems, with physical
I'm going to
problems.
show you this, and I always say I'm not being disrespectful for anybody with the Bible, but I call this book my Bible, and it's called The Secret Language of Your Body by Ina Segal. And the reason why I love this book, because you and I are speaking the same language. I talk about this stuff all the time, and I love that she goes by body systems and by using, I don't have a lot of teaching videos on my YouTube. I usually use my YouTube channel for a backup for the shows, but there are some videos. For example, one I call how to create a love shield for people particularly overly sensitive that can't go into crowds, or you've heard people, I'm sure you've heard this in your field, I know I have, and many others, people that are extremely sensitive and very empathic, they'll look at it as a curse. And I always say, it's a superpower. You just have to learn how to manage it. So I teach people also, I have a video about what is energy. Everything's energy. I teach people how to feel what energy looks like. And the reason why she really inspired me, because she goes by color and by using that ball of energy, and also with working with emotions for either parts of the body. And there's quite a few actually diseases, or like you said, the energy tends to kind of stay, doesn't it? And then it can develop into unwellness. So
right.
Same as what you're, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say stuck energy. It's, we need to move this on. But anyway, you carry on.
No, all I was going to say, even with the crystal Reiki that I do, and as I collectively call it, our guides, our angels, spirit, as I'm sure we all have a term for what we call them collectively. They keep saying you need to make a video, because a lot of people don't understand what crystal Reiki is. And we work with the chakras. And then I also work with the auric field. And you are absolutely right. If there's a disturbance in the, if you want to call it energy body, whatever you want to call it. I remember for one friend one time, I had done a crystal Reiki session for him, and we balanced them with Reiki symbols for crystal Reiki, intuitively used crystals. And I checked them. You don't have to be in front of me. I can do it distance-wise. But afterwards, I then check your energy body or auric field. And I didn't know this part about him, but as I was going over one of his ankles, and I use a pendulum, the pendulum, and I can tell how big the hole is by how, or, crack or whatever it may be, by how much the pendulum starts to swing. And it was swinging and swinging and swinging. And I said, are you having any pain or issues with your ankle? And he swore, because he was so shocked. And he goes, how would you know that? He said, I was in a terrible motorcycle accident 25 years ago. My ankle was almost crushed, and nobody knows that. And I said, I'd love to claim that I did it, but I didn't. Your body told us, right? So the body will reflect, or where a problem issue can start. Have you found that as well with your work?
Absolutely. I use a pendulum, but I don't actually scan people's bodies, because it's more about them telling me what their problems are, and then we will choose essences for them. And I would use my pendulum, but I also use their hand. I put my hand on their hand as well while I'm dousing with my pendulum.
So you're doing that face to face, I guess, then? Like, is the person in front?
I'm doing it face to face, but I do it online. I would do it online, and once I finished a consultation with somebody, then I will immediately go and douse for them. So obviously I don't have them there in present, but I've sort of downloaded their energy and got a good feel for what they need, and then I will go to douse without them there present.
Yeah, same thing. I always call it my gingerbread man or gingerbread girl. And it's just, I make like just an outline, and then that's how I do it, right? That's the way I was taught. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at some of these talking points that our wonderful friend Gavin Davies, who introduced me to you, sent us. And one of the ones I think is quite interesting, you said, understanding the complete you. I think we sort of touched on it, but is there anything else you wanted to add? Like you said, there's many different parts to what we just think is our body, right? So when you
Exactly, I think really understanding that we are much more than just a physical body. And I think in the times that we're living now, it's even more important to understand, because it's really a transition that we're going through, a period in history where it's very unsettled, and my understanding is we're transiting into something better, but it is a huge upheaval at the moment, and it's a lot of things are going on that we don't really like or enjoy, but also we've being bombarded by energies from the cosmos, from the sun, and we are having to learn, I think, to manage ourselves as energy beings. So to understand that we are much more than just physical beings is a good starting point, because then you become a bit more understanding of what is going on around you.
Never mind with the advancement in technology and the electromagnetic frequencies that we necessarily can't see, but they're there, right? And people seem to be spending, and I always say it's not my job to judge for anybody listening, so it's not a judgment, it's an observation. People and younger generations especially are spending more and more and more time on these devices, as what, like, even you're seeing toddlers, even like I've seen kids that are 8 or 9 months old with a tablet and what have you, right? So yeah, definitely, like I think we are going through a big upheaval, absolutely. And I loved what you said about moving into I think a better situation globally for ourselves. And I always say this came from spirit, to focus on what we want to see, not what we don't, because I think we are so powerful as human beings, right? With our thoughts, our words, and our emotions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, definitely.
So we kind of touch a little bit on this, but in what's the reasons that you find for illness or dis-ease, as the way, look, she's not the only book I use, but I do love this book because I usually just photocopy, and I'll screenshot for my client, or actually suggest, if they can, to buy the book and utilize those exercises, and they work. So what's your thoughts on what causes illness? We touched on, like I said, a little bit.
I think, yes, it's basically an imbalance in our thinking or our emotions. And you're right, we're so powerful. And I think in the future, we are going to be using the power of our thoughts more so in creating our well-being. We are said to create thought forms, which is just an energetic, it's just energy, isn't it? Energy. A thought form is basically an energetic thing that is able to produce results if it's used consistently and for the better. Obviously, the thought forms can be used for not so good things, but I think it can be used certainly for our well-being as well. What other thing you said? What other things? I don't think that the medical establishment really understands the innate ability of our bodies. We're much cleverer. That our body is just all the cells in our body are conscious, and that although I wouldn't, I'm not here to say anything about the medical establishment, anything negative, because at times we definitely need them at this point in our evolution. But it has a place, yes. The tendency, I think, is that we are brought up into a society that conditions us to think that we must be fixed by a medical intervention or a pharmaceutical drug. And, it doesn't really, it doesn't really. There could be other approaches here, is what I'm saying. So it's very much that the medical establishment is very geared to everybody being the same, which we are not. We're all sort of individuals.
Mm-hmm. I was on a panel on Friday with another one of our hosts. I just adore her, and it was Spirit Switchboard with Carrie Lynn Shellhorn. And the reason I bring it up is she had a panel of 4 of us talking about being mediums in the journey, and you know, if people ask questions they'd always wanted to ask. But the reason I bring it up, we were talking about what we each did, because we need to work, and as well as yourself too. You know, we always can work on healing for ourselves, and working on keeping that vibrational energy elevated if we can, and trying to work on these things, including what we put into our bodies. I do have to tell you too, we are recording, and I forgot to tell you before, but we're on YouTube, so we have to be careful with what we say. And I want to compliment you, because you've just been so incredible the way you worded things. So thank you. It's brilliant. It really is. So thank you. But where I was going with this, and it was interesting even to hear 4 different women, it was women on the panel, how we each have to say maintain our diet. And one person has to be very particular in order they find that their gift with mediumship just flows and works beautifully when they follow working with spirit on their side, like their guides or angels, and do maintain a more stricter diet. Whereas some of us, it was like, nope, I just eat whatever I want. And then there was someone in between. But the whole point I say that, and I think it's so important what you just said, we get treated like we are all the same, say when we're looking at Western medicine, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Like you said, none of us, we're all different. And I think that's so important to look at that. Really important. Mm-hmm.
And the focus on the healthcare system at the moment is focused on alleviating physical symptoms, and usually modern medicine is dealing with results, not causes. So
yes,
it's really important to get to the crux of the problem.
Or preventative, like when I went to
another thing that really...
Go ahead. We both have a delay, guys.
Well, sorry, I was just going to say it's...
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's... Yeah. So if we don't deal with the crux of the problem, it can be that it reoccurs, because sometimes we're told, that it's sorted, but unless that energy imbalance has been resolved, there's a chance that whatever illness may come back again. I write in the book about a lady. The name is just gone. It'll come back to me as I talk.
I'm wearing off on
yes,
you.
Valerie Hunt. Dr. Valerie Hunt. There's a lot of information in this book and a lot of research. So it's just like, I've got to recall it. Dr. Valerie Hunt was an American lady, and she did a lot of research on our energy fields, because if we're energy bodies, we emit a frequency, an energy field. And she says that if illness can be seen, or imbalances or potential for physical illnesses can be seen in the energy body, in the energy field, sometime before it would actually manifest. So if she says that we need to deal with it at the point where it is not manifest. This is a primary area of diagnosis. So how wonderful would it be if we can proceed in the medical establishment to actually use the equipment they do have, but it's not that well known, to photograph the around us, to see what's going on with our energy field, and to to see that if there's anything that needs to be resolved, we know it before we actually become ill.
I could not agree more. I could not agree more. I'm thinking of Carillion photography. Now, that's not quite what I know you're talking about. Similar, but the thing is, I could not agree more with you because, for example, when I went to university to get my nursing degree, the first 2 years, the biggest push, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of other things and it was a heavy course load the first 2 years, especially, but it was spent on health prevention and health promotion. And to me, and I've always asked this, and I graduated in 1988, why did we spend this much time on it? But in reality, it just goes out the window because it would save so many health issues and so many, I mean, we could go on and on and on. So I could not agree with you more. I think it's,
prevention is much better than actually getting to the state where we need to cure. I think a lot of this goes back, and I think we will be thrown into doing this more, is self-responsibility. We'll be more awareness as to, look at myself first, and is there anything that I can do before resorting to the medical establishment, which is overloaded anyway. And it's much, as you've said, it's much better for us to go for a much more natural approach if we can.
You know what the problem I think with it is, and I always say, if I had an ideal situation, I truly believe as a human being, never mind that we really are like a battery. When you break us down into the, calcium ion pump for heart and all the, the mineral, everything that's going on in our bodies. And we're mostly water. We talked about that earlier at the beginning, right? And I always say, ideally, that perfect yin yang. So we would be perfectly connected to, I call it Gaia, Earth, right? To the center of the earth, grounded. And through the chakra or energy centers, perfectly connected. I'll say source, God, the universe, whatever somebody's belief system is. And then you would have the perfect balance of positive and the perfect balance of the opposite, or if you want to call it negative, whatever, right? And then, like you said, looking at all the bodies and making sure that they're in alignment, because that's the problem. We've never been taught to look at things this way, because like most people, I find people are waking up now, a lot more people, but they were never made aware of these things, whereas maybe our grandparents or great-grandparents, this is what they did, right? They knew about these things, and nature,
I think,
could help.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I think we've moved far away from that. And, there could be reasons for that, really.
We know, I think we know, but we're being careful. So what do you think, though, moving forward? And I do agree with you that even though things seem tumultuous, a lot of division, and there's a lot of people that are afraid, I think we are moving into a positive, I don't know, era, if you want to call it that. But so what do you think are some of the solutions? Like, we talked a little bit about it, but you'd have to find a physician or whomever, practitioner we'll call it, that would look at that, have the equipment to analyze, say, the energy body and look at prevention and promotion. But what other things can people do to, solutions for well-being in the future?
I think things like crystal, as you mentioned, crystal healing has become, over the last 50 years, that has become much more accepted and much more popular. And I think it will continue to do so. Sound also, even color's a frequency, isn't it? So it's energy healing. But sound, yes, I mentioned in the book the solfeggio frequencies. Ooh. And those are different vibrations that can be used in healing. I haven't gone into great detail in the book, but people can look this up and learn a lot more about what would be the appropriate frequency for the healing. I think using the power of the visualization and, being, having quiet time. If we have, maybe a problem, an illness or something, we need to use our intuition. And also, I write about in the book, You Are a Frequency, that it's sometimes we're not listening to our soul, and that might be controversial for some people, but I write about the soul, or my understanding of it, because very little is written about it. And the soul knows what is best for us.
Absolutely.
And if we are not working in rhythm with our higher self or our soul, then that's when things become out of alignment. So the more that we can maybe sit quietly and learn to create a connection with our higher self or our soul, and learn perhaps some things that might help us on this level to, things that we might learn, things that are not in our best interest, usually, the feelings or whatever. We all know people who have had illnesses, and they say, well, it was good in many ways. It was the best thing that happened to me because I learned this, that, and the other. And I really came to terms with things that I shouldn't have let go or whatever. I changed my life. So that's, a download. The soul's saying, or the higher self is saying, you need to get to grips with this. So I think self-responsibility, as I mentioned before, is quite key. And that I think that this will become much more accepted in the future. Also, I think, it would be wonderful if we had sort of like spiritual advisors who would be able to work with us and say, you've got a problem, then let's look at this and let's understand this, and to help you come to your own understanding about what might be impacting that.
I agree 100% with everything you just said there, and it was so beautifully said. Yes, and I don't think people realize, and I always say, like, I think it's part of, and I'm not trying to sound egotistical, but I believe everybody's here for a reason. Nobody's here by accident. And the other thing is, we do have a purpose why we're here. And I think that one of mine is, say, when I'm doing these shows, or, a guest on a show or whatever, to remind people about how incredibly powerful we really are. Our thoughts, our words, and our emotions. Because I talk about energy all the time too. The laws, the law of energy, right? It can neither be created nor destroyed, but it can be transferred from one place to another. But also that inner voice, and we all do it. We all, we say things to ourselves that we may never hear in a lifetime, thankfully. But I love the term you just used, self-responsibility, because this is the problem, right? People have busy lives, and they get home and they're tired and they don't want to look any further. The other thing I have said to people too, doctors, nurses, anybody, and I'm not saying bad things about doctors, because I believe, yes, we need a marriage of all of these that we're talking about for the ideal healthy situation. But a doctor, for example, is just one person. So we've all seen people, especially, I guess, working in palliative care, if the person is open to it, to look further. That's just one person that maybe doesn't know that there may be something else out there that can help you. And then to be open to the possibilities at looking at other options as well. Do you cover anything like that in your book as well, Debbie?
No, I don't. I really focus on energy. And I have got one chapter.
That's where I was kind of going. I wasn't very clear,
Yeah.
but I meant, because a lot of people don't even know. Like, I'm so glad you've written this book about energy, but to even know that your thoughts, your words, your emotions, that you're just, you're all, everything is energy.
Yes.
And then to be able to work with it and tune it up, if you will, or with the frequency, the name of your book, tuning your frequency into, like you were talking about, sound healing, right? Finding, and I've sent many of YouTube's a great source for that. There's many other places too with free videos and different types of sound healing modalities, for example, at different megahertz or binaural beats or what have you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I was going with that. So I used to hate this term when I lived in my home, that I had all the very, very scary, very negative paranormal experiences. I now know why, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I hadn't. I was still bent on I was going to go back to school and be a doctor and everything. So I guess I must have planned for myself to have something pretty profound to shake
Wow.
things up.
Yeah, yeah.
But I used to hear all the time, you need to raise your vibration. Raise your vibration. And this is years ago. And I used to say, what the heck does that mean? I really did, because I didn't understand it. So vibrational essences, let's talk a little bit about that as an energy treatment.
I think vibrational essences, obviously, as I explained, they're helpful for our thoughts or negative or emotions, but also they do raise your vibration. Sometimes I have clients and we don't, if it's a complex situation, I'll say, well, we're just going to start with dealing with X, Y, Z, and maybe next time we'll start with the other things. But what essences generally do is that they balance. So when that person maybe comes back to me and they'll say, well, not only did X, Y, Z get better, but ABC that we didn't really address has got better as well. So I didn't really have to, because generally they work on raising the frequency of the body and helping on lots of different levels. So there's been an overall energy healing, if you see what I mean. Mm-hmm. So that's just, they work in such an incredible way. I just hope that we can embrace them much more in the future and more people will get to know about them. What was the rest of your question now? I think did I answer the question correctly?
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking, because I'm listening to spirit. No, I'm not hearing voices for anybody. I always tell them it's just within the mind's eye, if you will. And I'm thinking what I want to ask you. But let me go back. If I keep
multitasking.
Multitasking, but you were saying, oh, I know what it is. I literally could hear that somebody's going to hear this and think, okay, flower essences, I'm excited about it, these essences, but do I have to keep taking them once the problem X, Y, and Z, I've come to see you? Do I
not
need
necessarily? No,
that's what I know, but somebody's asking that. That's why I wanted to ask you. Or they will ask
Usually, if that situation has resolved, then unless that person puts themselves into another situation where, they've added more stress and then maybe something has happened again. But it's not usual. But usually when that sort of situation has resolved, then that time has finished with the essences. But we're all very complex people and we're working on very different levels, aren't we? So there's so many facets to ourselves. So there can be all sorts of different levels of, you might think, oh, I've sort of sorted this problem, but there's another little nuance or another little bit that maybe is still there somewhere. So you can understand what I'm saying. That generally, if we dealt with a problem, then that's usually finished. People don't.
Sorry.
People don't necessarily have to go to a practitioner, although a practitioner is skilled at understanding the various different issues that person has to deal with and can prioritize them probably in some way. But also it's very easy, as you say, just to treat yourself or your family by just learning a bit of knowledge about flower essences and giving it a try. The trouble is it's very difficult because there's so many. So you think, where do I start? Which one is for me? Mm-hmm. So that's where the skill of a practitioner comes in and in using the exact one that's right, appropriate for that person. But I did write a book, as I said, my first book. It was some years ago, and it was basically a general guide to selecting flower essences by astrological sign. I mean, I say guide because for a lot of people that can be very helpful. But when we got more complex situations with somebody, then it's not just a matter of looking at their astrological sign. It's more of going into a lot more detail, if you see what I mean. But I think a lot of feedback I had that it was very helpful for people to understand themselves through the astrology, and then understand which aspects of their personality would be benefit from flower essences.
I agree with you, because even though I would never say to somebody I'm an expert at homeopathy or naturopathy or what, it's, researched and what have you. And even when it came to flower essences, I was super excited about them. But for example, going to one store, and you were absolutely right, there was such a multitude of them. Like I just didn't know. And the problem is, I mean, you can try them, but I think you hit the nail on the head again. To go to work with somebody that's very knowledgeable, such as yourself, right? You would know. I think you could pinpoint sort of more what people would need, rather than hit and miss and try. I don't know. That's how I kind of feel about it.
Yeah, no, what you say is correct, but I don't want people to think that you just have to always go. It's quite nice to explore a little bit yourself, and to see what is available, and to see what you intuit to be right for yourself, using your intuition to see if it's a reasonably simple case, maybe. But for more complex situations, it's probably wise to consult with a practitioner.
I'm believe me, I can't get out of my head about the dolphin essences. I am so enamored with dolphins. Like when I was 6 years old, I was could read at quite a few grade levels ahead of myself at the age I was at. So I was reading, for some reason, dolphin and dog textbooks. I love animals. And I do have a few tattoos I got later in life, but the first one I got is actually of a larger dolphin, a medium dolphin, and a little dolphin. So it symbolizes me with my two boys. And I've actually swam with dolphins, and it's truly one of the most magical, incredible experiences I've ever had. It was so beautiful.
You're so lucky. That's lovely.
I always wanted to. I don't know if I'll ever get to again. The one thing I will tell you that was shocking to me, and it shouldn't have been, how big they are. They're big. So the other thing I wanted to ask you, because I thought this was interesting. First of all, I'll read it, and then I'm going to ask you. It might be a two-part question, but it says cosmic cycles influencing humanity. So first of all, for people that don't understand, what are cosmic cycles?
Well, I think the cosmos, there are certain cycles in the cosmos, say the age of Aquarius. I mean, that is a cosmic cycle, and probably people have heard quite a lot about that.
Yes.
And one of the reasons that we're in a bit of flux right now in our world is that we are sort of like right between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius. And these things it doesn't just like, oh, finish one age, on to the next. It doesn't work like that. It just goes over a period of many, many years, where it's one age is just sliding out, and the other energies of the other age are getting greater. So that would, and we can see that. That's very easy to see what is happening right now, because we've been in the age of Pisces, we've been in a sort of a time where there are definitely some good things to say here, but in relation to what we are facing right now, we're seeing ourselves maybe as, I would say, victims, because the tendency with a Piscean energy is to give your power away. And Pisces people do have to be careful of that. They have to have good boundaries. But I think over 2,000 plus years, when the age of Pisces has been running in manifestation, then that has been one of our tendencies. It's also about religion, and not surprisingly, we've had numerous religious wars, and we've sort of like, it's like we've been separated. I think there've been duality. We've been, we've been opposed to each other. and that is not necessarily as I see the future, but it's brought it, although religion and religions have been, there are so many different, my religion is better than your religion or whatever, this is not really helpful really, but we've seen such a lot of that the last sort of 6 years, or 2000 odd years. And in the future, as I said, I don't believe, and there's always with astrologers, there's probably not necessarily agreement as to when we be fully into the Aquarian age, because it's hard to measure, because we don't know where we actually started measuring. But it would definitely be some years, probably from now on, at least into maybe the 2100. So some years to go, another 80 plus years. So before we're fully into it, but I think we're see what we hoping to move into is a world where there will be much more unity. That's a sort of a key word for Aquarius. There's always the shadow side, and we've certainly seen the shadow side with the age of Pisces. It's been showing itself in recent years. We've seen that, and the breakdown of certain things in society. And we may, we're often in the age of Aquarius, there can be an intolerant Aquarian. One of the negative traits about Aquarians can be that they're not always tolerant. So we're probably seeing a little bit of this now as it works its way through and comes into a higher manifestation. We will we'll see all sorts, but hopefully at some point we will see the better side of Aquarius. And of course, it's us ourselves, if we are aware, it's how we interpret these energies. And so if we are keeping our vibration high and we are visualizing our future to be better and to be not to have wars and not to have illness and things like that, then that's what it will be. We actually impact it a lot, how we interpret the energies.
That was a great answer. So thank you. And I couldn't agree more. I'm going to put in one question, but then I got to do a station ID. So hopefully I'll remember, you'll remember it. But I wanted to ask you, isn't there supposed to be a special astrological event going on that we haven't seen all 6 of the planets? Isn't it the next day or two?
Do you know what? I haven't. I've been so busy with other things that I haven't really. But I think you're right, but I can't actually bring the date to.
I think it's tonight, June the 3rd. And I think it's when all 6 planets are in alignment. But let's hold that thought just for 1 sec, because we're just past the top of the hour. That went by so quick, Debbie. So I just want to remind you, if you're just tuning in, this is live. This is a new show. This is the Angel Rock with myself, Lorilei Potvin, and my amazing guest, author of multiple books, astrologer, and she has written about flower essences, and very knowledgeable, lovely lady, Debbie Sellwood. But we're pre-recording earlier today on Monday, June the 3rd, 2024. So if you're just tuning in and you're live and you're saying, why is nobody answering my questions? I apologize, but there's no way to do that if we pre-record. But stay tuned, because this is an amazing interview. I'm just loving it. I know all of you will too, because I think, Debbie, you're the first person I've had on that's talked about this type of stuff, this whole modality, not energy, but how it kind of fits in a little bit with astrology and cosmic energy and what have you. So you are listening to UFO Paranormal Radio Network. And also this is the Angel Rock on 105.7. 105.3 out of Mississippi and 107.7 out of New Orleans. And thank you for joining us. Sorry about that, Debbie. We're supposed to do that at the top of the hour. Yeah, I had heard something about, because like I said, I understand a little bit about astrology, but it's certainly not my expertise. I would love to know more about it. But as I know with most astrologers, I shouldn't call you an astrologer, but people that study it, they're usually very passionate about it, but it takes quite a bit of work, doesn't it, to understand the intricacies and all of it and how it all goes together, say with a birth chart, for example.
I think when I was studying it, and I studied with an organization that has a very spiritual sort of approach, which was really helpful to me because I was understanding other things as well as the astrology. But I used to think, how am I ever going to remember all this? And I'm never going to get to grips with this, which, but fortunately, I'm persistent. And so it did take many years. I started off and I did a certificate while it was part-time while I was working, and then I did a diploma. So I think it probably took me about 9 years or something like that.
No doubt.
It's a vast subject, and there's so much more. If I could devote the rest of my life to researching and understanding more about astrology, then I would be delighted. It would be something that I would quite like to do. But you're right, it is complex. I mean, when I first started, although the computers was just starting to produce birth charts, so they were computerized, it was an essential part of our learning to draw up a birth chart by hand. So I had to understand all that. And that's how they would have done it many years ago. But now it's so much easier with computers. And of course, it offers you so much more for looking at researching and back and forth in the years and what's happened and whatever. So it's yes, it's a very big subject. It is. You need, if you're going to be an astrologer, you need to have persistence to actually keep in there and hold that vision, because it can be sort of like people will say, oh, it was just too much and I gave up. But if you want it enough and it's your thing, then you will. And I always felt, I think, oh, although I found it hard, I think, oh, I've done this before. It's bringing it back, somewhere that I feel that I've got an affinity towards this. So hence I just kept going.
There's another lady. I haven't had her on in a while. She's gotten so busy. Her name's Carmen Schott Turner, and she does astrology as well. And I always call it the muggle job that you do your 9 to 5. She's actually a social worker, and I'm always so fascinated when people put two modalities together, such as yourself, and she does too. She actually uses astrology. It helps her when she's working in the social work field as well. But for once, and I know this is a major oversimplification, so I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it helped me understand. The first time she was on my show, and she said, basically, the reason why we need your exact name, your date of birth, where you were born, the time, and what have you, is because it's like taking an exact snapshot of the sky of the 12 astrological planets. And I went, oh my goodness, but I'm getting goosebumps as I'm telling you, not even cold. It just hit me all of a sudden. As human beings, we come in here, and speaking of vibration, there are many times when we go through difficult things that we think we're truly all alone, and we feel lost. And all of a sudden it hit me, we've never been alone. We have the guides, we have the angels. I mean, you just got to find people sometimes if you can't do it for yourself. Like the astrology, look into that. It can give you so much information, right, about who you are, why you're here. We've got psychics, we've got mediums, I could go on and on and on, but we really aren't alone. It's almost like whoever the higher power that somebody believes. It doesn't matter to me what somebody's higher power, or even if they don't. But where I'm going with this is, even if anybody's ever been a caretaker or a parent, and say you're sending your child on a vacation, off to camp, whatever, you don't just send them, right? It's almost like Spirit almost gave me the vision of putting on our spiritual backpack when we come, and all these tools are in there. It's just up to us to discover it, should we choose, right?
That's right. Yeah. Some people are more inclined to do that because it's just for me, it's always been, who am I? What am I doing here? What's this all about?
People ask that, and then they say, what's my purpose? Like when people come to me, say for a reading or Akashic records or what, or even just, intuitive advice, I always tell them I'm never going to tell you what your purpose is. I can walk with you through it to maybe help you discover it. But that's not up for me to tell somebody what their purpose is. But with astrology, right? Like that pretty well maps it all out, by the way. Am I wrong?
I can give people indications of their what would be a good way to go for their soul path. Yes, but it's up to them if they choose not to do so, or they're not interested. But then I don't usually talk about it if they're not interested. But people often feel a real affirmation. I thought I could do this, but I wasn't sure. But you're saying that I have this ability, and this is it. This is my path. And I think that was one of the reasons I started to become an astrologer, learn astrology, is because I really wanted to understand what I should be doing on a more deeper level than a superficial 9-to-5 working job. What could I do to be of service to humanity, really, in the way, because that's important to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to a lot of people these days, that we're all the service element, that what can we do to help each other?
Because even if you bring it right down to the most basic level, most people, not all, but most people want to feel needed, want to feel, by helping somebody else. I always say you're really giving the gift to yourself, because most people, I mean, I can't even put it into words, but people will know listening to this, when you help others when they need it, and you're not doing it for, altruistic reasons other than somebody needs your help, and you reached out and took the time. It's such a wonderful feeling, and you've been able to help somebody else in the process, right?
Absolutely. It is a wonderful feeling. Yeah.
So, I love this too. I saw this, and because I'm passionate about crystals. So one of the points that was down here is we are crystals. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yes. I mean, there is a lot of research that people have researched this, and I've documented it all in the book, because this is not something I'm saying, we are crystals, we contain crystals. It's actually scientific that people have done the research. We liquid crystals. So we are, in our body, we contain liquid crystals. The organs and the fluids and the systems of our body are said to be composed of liquid crystals. Now, that is so interesting to me. I was aware, as an essence practitioner, that, as I said earlier, that water holds a memory. And I don't know if your viewers are familiar. There was a Japanese doctor. He was called Emoto. Yeah.
I know that, but my listeners may not. So please go ahead and share.
Well, he did a lot of research on water, and he would expose, say, one bowl or glass of water to words that, this is very simplified of what he did. He would expose them to words that were hateful, and thoughts that were not very nice.
So low vibration.
The low vibration. And then another glass of water, he would send it love and beautiful thoughts. He'd even put pieces of paper underneath it with the words on, things like this. And then he froze that water, and the ones that were sent love, the water that was sent love, was formed into beautiful, beautiful crystals. But the one that was not very nice and negative was very disjointed crystal pattern. So obviously was a thinking that, hey, there must be to the fluid, there must be a crystal sort of element that it forms into anyway. But I'd read in one of my flower essence book that we actually contain these liquid crystals, and so it was going on with me for several years. And I thought, no, I'm going to include this in the book, and I'm going to do more research about it. So it made sense for me when I understood it more, because it's more than likely the way that energy moves through the body, or the energetic messages because we have this crystalline makeup. We know that crystals can hold energy and focus energy, transmit energy. So on a different level, if the liquid crystals would be doing that within the body. And they also work to help let's say as an energy treatment, say as flower essences, they would help that as well to work as well. So yes, it's pretty a mind, you need to stretch your mind to understand that we actually are, in some parts, we are crystals, liquid crystals, but it's, I think, really amazing, and really it's not something we usually hear about. But as I say, I've put it in the book, I've put the information that people further research and have a look at it.
I love it, because I was saying, we are crystals. I want to hear what your thoughts were on that. And again, you have not said anything that, well, not that I would be disagreeable. I probably just wouldn't say anything. But my point is, everything I knew when you were going to come on here, you would be speaking my language. As soon as I saw what your book was, I went, oh, yes, yes, yes. I have to talk to this lady. And I'm loving everything you're saying. Now, I'm probably going to quote this incorrectly, but you've mentioned it a few times. Did you say water has memory, or our cellular body? Yeah, that's I thought you said. So can you explain a bit about that for people that might not understand what that means?
Well, it's energy, and there've been flower essences are an example of how the energy is held in the water. But I suspect there are other experiments that are done to understand this. The other thing I didn't say with the crystals in the body also is that it makes us into a bit of like an antennae.
So you're reading my mind, because that's what Spirit kept giving me. Like, we're literally like a lightning rod, or like I had said earlier, a battery. So I just love what you just said. Continue, please.
Yeah. So although we think ourselves as very individual, we are connected really to others, and we are one, as people may have heard that expression used before. But we're one with the universe. We are picking as an antennae. We are we're tuning into information, and the universe is absolutely full of information. All of these people, I think I quote Jude Currivan and another scientist. Their theory is that the cosmos is just one alive being, and it's all composed of information, transmitting information. So we are an antennae. If we're going to use our intuition to pick up the right things rather than something we don't need, that's really up to us as well. And I think it also explains, not necessarily liquid crystals, but the fact that we are all connected is that as you talked about the woman who was extremely sensitive to people and being in out, and we all have to, because it's unspoken. We might be with people and they don't have to say anything about who they are or what's going on with them, but there are a lot of people who will pick, such as yourself, you'll just pick up on those energies. And for people who are sensitive, they really have to learn to manage this energy and to create boundaries for themselves, because it can be very debilitating.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
As a practitioner of many things, I think if you're dealing with people, one of the most important things is, it's not just for practitioners, but when you're dealing with people's emotions and thoughts, then to be able to have strong boundaries is really a must.
Well, it's a must too. And like, for example, my eldest son, and I'll forget sometimes. I mean, he was on his own, he's engaged. And once in a while, we'll maybe head over to the local shopping mall. And if it's busy, he'll start getting kind of uncharacteristically cranky and irritable. And then I'll look at him and say, oh, we're in a mall. And, I've tried to teach him about that, about the grounding. I call it grounding and gritting, as well as, that's why I call it a love shield, because I'm sure you've heard this in this field when it comes to vibration and frequency and energy. that people will say, well, you've got to protect yourself. You've got to protect yourself. And I never really liked that because it almost to me implied there was something to be afraid of. And so I thought, working with spirit, I thought one of the most powerful energies and emotions is love. So I always tell people it takes longer to walk through this video than it will for you to do it. But I wanted to walk people so that they could actually create it while they're watching. So they don't turn the video off and go, what did she say in step 7 again? Or whatever, right? And I just wish people could understand how truly powerful we are. And the one thing I wanted to add, pulling this vibration and frequency together that's in your book, is when you look at people that have had near-death experiences. My co-host had one as an adult, and when they come back and they try to explain that they really get it now, that from the tiniest microscopic grain of sand to the tallest mountain, that we really, through vibration, frequency, energy, we really are all one. We all, do you cover a little bit of that too? Or where do you go with all of this, with the frequency and energy as it unites us? Like, are you able to break that down a little bit more for people? This is going to be new terms to people because we do broadcast potentially to every country in the world. So there'll be people tuning around and hearing this and going, what are they talking about? And they've never heard this before.
I think it's helpful, especially in the world we live in now, to be just open to things, to a lot of, as you said earlier, a lot of people are awakening to things that are not what they thought before.
Yes.
So the more we can just accept or to do our own research, whatever, and move into a different thought pattern, we're so conditioned that we often see like this much sort of thing. So we're learning to see a bit more, and that we are, as I say, we're all connected. I do have a chapter in the book, and I talk about the fact that a little bit about boundaries, as we spoke about earlier, and how important.
So important. We can even talk about that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It is important. It's not that we expect negative things, but it's just like we need to create a situation, an energy field around us that would, anything that comes to us that is not really in harmony with our higher good is just like bounced off and we don't really notice it. But
like attracts like energy, I always tell people.
Yes, yes.
And then start getting into the spiritual laws of the universe. That's why the law of attraction, how it works is by raising your vibration and frequency and thoughts and on and on and on. Like, it really does all tie into each other, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's really important. Maybe I'll talk about a little bit in a minute about how some people ask me, well, how can I raise my frequency? To go back to, we are all one. I think I talk about the planets being conscious entities, or the Earth as conscious entity.
I call it Gaia.
Yeah, Gaia is Gaia, and the other planets, they are conscious beings, and they are most likely, in a sort of esoteric understanding of this, they're most likely to be chakras in the solar system, and the solar system's likely to be a chakra in the universe, in a higher energy, and it probably goes on and on. So we are, and there's all this sort of theory as well that everything is a hologram. So every little piece contains the everything about everything else, and it informs us about everything else. And that's really just mind-blowing, really. I think we have yet to really formulate our understanding exactly of what that is. But I do write a little bit about what I think. I'm no scientist, so say there's people I do quote in the book who will expand those concepts a bit more. So, but we are really much more than we think we are.
Absolutely. You know what the beauty in what you just said, though? I'm not a scientist. The beauty is that you're explaining it in terms that people can understand. You don't have to have a scientific background to
That's right.
understand it.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's hopefully that. Yeah, I've tried to do that, and people have said to me, "You explain it well." It's
You
about
do. You do. Like this conversation we're having, depending on who has it, and it's with no blame or judgment. But like I said, somebody could be rifling around, and it happens. People are just looking for something to watch, and they're on YouTube, and this comes up, and they go, "Oh, that sounds interesting," and they take a look. They would be able to understand what we are talking about, because these really are, and can be, depending on who's talking about it, really high level concepts, especially if somebody's never heard of this before. You mentioned boundaries. I know that's one of my lessons in this lifetime. But can you talk a bit about that? Because boundaries are so important for who
well,
we
it's
are.
just being able to create or visualizing an energetic boundary around us using light or whatever, but affirmation, visualization that we are safe and protected. And especially if we're going into situations where we think, I don't necessarily want to deal with this, whatever it is. It might be quite challenging or difficult, but being able to surround yourself with this sort of protection is a help. And then you feel reinforced to, as I say, it's hopefully that you can also learn that if something comes towards you that you don't like, then you just visualize your boundary, pushing it back. Go back from where you come from. I don't need that, and I'm not having that. Push that back, maybe to that person who said something that is not really helpful. It's we're not necessarily living all our life all the time needing boundaries, but there are certain situations that we need to be aware of that. And certainly if we're going into a situation where we don't know much about, and it doesn't hurt to make sure that that's, you've done that sort of work. But hopefully, as you say, good attracts good. But I absolutely agree with that. But sometimes it's part of our soul's purpose to go into challenging situations to resolve something.
Well, where I was going with that is that I believe like attracts like energy, which relates to your vibration, energy, and frequency. So, say, and we've seen some people probably encountered it, and I'm not putting blame on anybody, but maybe you're depressed or you're living in a situation that isn't ideal. Maybe you don't feel safe. Maybe there's a lot of crime. Maybe there's a lot of, these are sort of lower vibrational energetic situations.
Mm-hmm.
But where I was going with that, and it's really helped me in my previous home, because my hubby was thrown 15 feet across the kitchen. We were scratched. We were burnt. Like, you wouldn't believe the things that happened and other people experience. So this is right. Like I said, people kept saying, you've got to raise your vibration. And I kept saying, what the heck is that? So once I started to understand it and how truly powerful it is, and it only can take one person. Like, my family didn't understand about this, but it was a full-time job for me. I was finding everything you could out about this.
Yeah.
And once I understood I could raise the frequency within the house, regardless of what was going on or whatever was there, we were no longer a match for each other, sort of just what you said. So the physical attack stopped. You see what I'm saying? So it all goes together. That's why I was so excited about having you on here.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, sorry.
You're using the power of your thoughts. So you're using the power of your visualization and doing whatever you were doing to raise your vibration. And so we can imagine that for our health situation, we can do the same for ourselves.
Well, let's talk about that. So if people want to raise their vibration, I know we sort of kept talking, but you had said maybe you might be able to touch on that a bit for people. Because like I said, it drove me crazy in the beginning. It was like, if one more person says this to me, and now I say it because I understand it.
I think on a general level, to raise our vibration, we need again, to go back to dysfunctional emotions or things that we've holding that we don't need, or thinking, whatever, because it's not in our best interest, and it's
Or
very
beliefs.
hard. Yeah.
Beliefs.
Very hard to let go of it. But once, our body's living in the present, so it's like not helpful to keep reinforcing something that is gone. And so we have to do whatever we can to maybe reframe the situation, see it differently, or to whatever we can to let that situation go. So to think positively, regardless of what your situation is, and that's a hard one, but it's like, if you can see the good in something, there's even a small situation, the good in something, that's absolutely the right thing to focus on. To live with some sort of joy in your life,
Absolutely.
even though circumstances are not necessarily wonderful, or to be honest, the way the world is right now is not wonderful. But we still have to find our own sort of joy. I think the one thing, being in nature, because nature, wow, it's just, we can forget completely about what we thought was sort of worrying us if we're spending time in nature and being with the plants and the trees and whatever. And being grateful. I touched on it a little bit there, but absolutely, gratitude is really powerful. There's a few words in the book. They're not my words. They're by another lady called Penny Pierce, and she does this. I used it in another recording with for my online book launch, and I just read the words, and we went into a little meditation. It's only a few lines long, but it's really powerful to let that feeling of gratitude expand in your heart. So, and of course, making sure that our connection with our higher self is, we work on that. It's always work in progress, that we're working on being intuitive and reading those messages. So I think those are all good general things to raise our vibration, but particularly if we have some sort of physical problem, then we need to spend more time focusing on seeing our body, visualizing our body, and giving it affirmations and sending thought forms to the body, and making sure the chakras are, aligned and the body is well. We need to probably spend more time with that, and making sure that we are listening to those messages. So that would be...
Well, because our body, part of when I'm teaching and mentoring, or where, on a podcast with someone, I teach people too that I truly believe that the human body, well, any body here that is functioning and living, whether it's a human, an animal, I could go on and on. It's so perfectly and intricately designed that I truly believe it is capable of self-healing. But because of what we run into energetically, or it could be a frequency, it could be whatever it might be, we can hang on to that, as we talked at the beginning. And then this is sometimes where illness can come from, right? So I agree with you. Some of the other things, I love everything you said. Like I said, I can't disagree with one thing. I don't do that anyways on my show, but I'm just so excited because we are so much in alignment in the way of what you're saying, the book that you've written, and what you're sharing, because this is exactly what I believe. Some of the other things I have found working with people, where I think your book could be helpful, gratitude. And I've met people that I've worked with that say, I have nothing to be grateful for. And because they're in such a low state or a place of difficulty. So what I usually will say is, did you wake up this morning? Well, obviously they'll say, were you able to maybe have a cup of coffee or some breakfast? Or were you able to have a roof over your head? Or we start wherever they're at, but we look at our surroundings, their surroundings, and start looking at I love the way, I wish I would have remembered how you worded it, but seeing the good in things, I think, is what you said. Rather than choosing the negative, what's good in it? And I think that's so important. The other thing I will say to them, because the more we choose to be grateful, it seems the more things come into our life to be grateful for.
Mm.
And the last thing I was going to add to some of the other things I will suggest to people, I could not agree. I use that all the time. Stay, if you can, to get into a state of joy. And again, I will meet people that will say I have nothing to be joyful for. So then sometimes we'll go back to their childhood. What brought you joy when you were a child? Invariably, when somebody can't think of something, they usually say being outside. Right?
Mm.
Starting with the simple. I always
Mm.
say to bring some of the outside indoors. If you can open your windows, let the sun come in. If there's no sun, let the light come in. Bring in some flowers, maybe if you could, or anything like that. And the last thing I usually suggest is, we all have people that we love to be around. Not everybody we love to be around, but we have people that we know will make us smile or make us laugh. You can have people over, have a happy occasion within wherever you're living if you're able to. That will raise it. And the final thing, almost every person I've ever met, myself included, we all have a movie that we have seen sometime in our life or a TV show that we know is going to make us laugh. Pop that on, or even music, right? Anything to bring that joy in, right?
Most definitely. Absolutely. Being in the garden, I'm a gardener myself, so I just love to be outside. I mean, in England, it's the weather is probably it'd be milder than Canada, so we can grow a lot of maybe different flowers and things. So that's a real joy to me. But absolutely, I was going to say, movies, laughing is just got to raise your vibration.
It's the best medicine, right?
It is the best medicine. It is. So the more you can do these things, just make a concentrated effort to do them, because it's benefiting you 100-fold.
That's why I think your book's so important, because to have it kind of all in one place and to be able to understand this, because we don't learn these things in school. At least I know most people I've talked to have not. And, it's kind of getting back to basics. Go ahead. Sorry, Debbie.
I was going to say, I think it's like we're empowered when we know these things, but that is really not certain people, certain organizations. It's not really the thing for us to be empowered to know this.
I agree.
So I think it's been another thing about the age of Pisces is that it's been hidden. Pisces often is what's behind the scene, what's been hidden. So we're sort of now, drawing this out and thinking, hey, we didn't know this, but it's true. But we've been kept in a little closet somewhere and not been allowed to know this.
Now, I could hug you because you've just said this so beautifully, but if you know, you know. And I think there's a lot of people that'll know exactly what you're talking about, myself included. So thank you the way you said it.
It's important we embrace that and we really get to grips and to understand ourselves more on this level. We are so much more powerful than we are told we are.
Absolutely.
And that includes, particularly, the emphasis on my book is about health and well-being. So we are much more powerful than we think to be able to help ourselves on that level. And generally, as you say, on just the higher vibration means that better things come into your life. You've got to practice it consistently. You can't say, "Oh, my vibration was high today, but nothing happened, so I've gone back to a negative vibration."
Or I already did it last Saturday, so I'm good. I don't have to do it till next Sunday or next Saturday, right?
It's got to be the way you live, and of course, we are realistic in that certain things happen, and one day you may think, "Oh, I feel myself closing in a bit and my vibration is going down." It's your responsibility to think, no, okay, I've had a little bit of a hiccup, but I'm not going down. I'm going to keep up. And that's, if we can always remember that, we're always it's just natural that these things happen. But as long as we can recover, that's the important thing.
What I do want to ask you is, how can your book help people that, and we've run into them, I run into clients like this as well, and again, with no judgment for anybody listening, but it's in their nature to always believe that the glass is half empty. Like, I have literally had a few people message me and say, how, first of all, how do you always stay so positive? And I tell them it's a choice, and it's exactly this whole show, what we've talked about. But also they'll say, well, my life is absolute crap. I'm in constant pain. I'm miserable. I'm this, I'm that. And it's their whole attitude, but they know they need to shift. So obviously, buying a book like yourself, but how else can we help people to recognize? Because I think you hit the nail on the head, Debbie. Like, people think because they try it once and nothing happened, well, it doesn't work.
It is our choice, as you say. So it's like a wake-up call. All right, okay. If it's my choice to stay in the negative vibration, then that's how it's going to be. But if we change our thoughts, in the book I quote Bruce Lipton, and he's quite prolific on social media. He's a scientist, STEM biologist, and what he's telling us with the science of epigenetics is that we are not controlled by our genes. It's our external influences, and it's our perception of things and the way we feel about things that actually can change our body and our DNA. It's not coming just from me. It's coming from Bruce Lipton. And
I agree with you 100%.
The research, he's done the research. He's a scientist, so he has credibility. And if people can, explore possibly the work he does and the messages he sends out. So it's our perception is so important. Whereas you say that some person would say, my life is so awful and I'm in pain. Another person's perception may, in a similar situation, may not necessarily be like that. They may look at it in a slightly different way, which is helpful, really, for the physical body.
I'm one of those people. I am a chronic pain sufferer, but and I get people saying to me a lot, especially not on this show, but when you talk to different people, why are you always so positive? Because it really do choose. And I love what you said earlier, Debbie, about seeing the good in things. And if I can't see the good in things, for example, we've all been through, most of us, something really awful, at least once in our lifetime. In our perception, it was horrible to go through it. And then you'll see it. And especially once you start down this path, well, why did this happen? Now, I always say, give yourself grace. Anybody out there, give yourself the grace that maybe the reason for it isn't clear. But usually with time and looking back, you can usually see why it needed to shift, right? And I always usually say it's to bring something better. It is, right? If it has to move something out of the way, for example.
That's right, to move something out of the way and to put you on a different path. It may seem a bit harsh, but I think it's important not to go into a victim mode, if you see what I mean.
Because thank you. I was thinking that for people. Yes, thank you.
I don't want to be harsh because I understand how difficult it is for some people. But the more we go into a victim mode, that's not helpful at all for our well-being.
Well, you get stuck in there, and it's literally like being on a hamster wheel, right? And I always say it's so easy to see the situation being objective and looking from the outside in. And I also believe it takes a lot of courage and a lot of honesty to hold that proverbial mirror up to our face. But say we can't do it, that's where somebody, say like yourself or myself or other people, and I'm not trying to make it sound like we're on a pedestal, because the other thing I tell people, all of us are intuitive. All of us can do these type of things. It's just through what you encounter in life, energetically, frequency, vibration, where you go with life. that you end up doing what you're doing. But all of us have these abilities. And so say you can't look in that proverbial mirror, but you know something needs to shift. That's when, if you're open-minded, you can take a look around, try a few things, see what resonates, right? Buy some books.
Yeah. Buy your frequency.
Yes, yes, exactly. But you have to be open-minded too, because this is a big world and a lot of people have never been outside their own back door. And they have no idea the beauty and the wonders and the incredible people they could meet. And again, this is something about a choice, right? Versus people that don't leave their backyard because there's horrible people out there. I could get in an accident. I could be in a plane crash. I could be this. I could be, right? It's all about higher frequency and energy and vibration.
Yes, absolutely. You said it so well.
I really do. And I always say to people, I'm not perfect, but I really do try to walk the walk of the talk that I do. And I can tell from talking to you, Debbie, that you do the same, because it would be pretty fraudulent, I think, for us to talk about these things if we didn't practice them ourselves. It just wouldn't come across as
absolutely. I mean, I do, as I said, we are all human. So certain things come along and you think, and your frequency may go down a bit, but the important thing is to really be able to think, well, okay, done that. That's not a good place to exist. Let's go back up again because it's much better for us. So, we're human. So let's, being realistic about it. If we can live, it's impossible probably to always, certainly in the world we live in at this moment, to live always on a high frequency, but that's our job. That's what we have to master. We will get better at it as well.
That's true. And to give yourself the grace, if you are having a day that's maybe not high vibe, that's okay too. What? Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and tomorrow's a new day. We only got like 4 minutes left, not even, but I want to ask you this because I think it's so important. The 7 rays. What are the 7 rays in your book?
Yes. The 7 rays, not many people have heard about the 7 rays, but I've been quite fascinated with them.
It is fascinating.
They are streams of energy. There are more than 7 rays, but the 7 rays are the main ones that are talked about. Streams of energy from the cosmos, and they are said to power the actual ages, say the age of Aquarius. And we have been the 7 rays are, they're influencing us on a personal level, but they also influence us on a collective level. So we've had 2,000 plus years, very similar to the age of Pisces, of the 6th ray, which has been very much related to what I was talking about from the age of Pisces, the religious wars. It's very much about the 3D world and the judgment and the separation. And, we are not being told that we're not connected. And that has been, all the rays they always cycle in and out, but they have higher times of higher peak manifestation, which is such now. The 6th ray, again, similar to the age of Pisces, is ebbing, and the energies of the 7th ray are coming into force. So the 7th ray has much more of a holistic approach, which is really, really good news. And it is responsive to, say, the etheric body, the subtle body that I was talking about. And it is, what it's doing is as it's building up, it's not a situation where one ray ends and the next one starts. It's a cutover period. It's transitioning us to experience another reality. And all of energy is to do with another reality. And it's the reality that we have the power to influence things in our life, just what we've been talking about. We will understand that as it becomes more stronger in its manifestation, that it's really brings into if you've ever heard as above, so below, then it's everything is on a spiritual level or etheric level before it's actually manifests physically. So I think we begin to understand more about that. We will be, it's also very sort of influencing us on our thought levels. So important what we've been talking about, the ability to focus and visualize. It's the ray that is said to bring order out of chaos. So, wow, we're in chaos right now.
Oh,
so
are we ever? Mm-hmm.
And it's also, it's working. It's the systems that are not working for us. It will show those systems and as not they're redundant. So I think we're seeing that as well. We're seeing it as well. So it's more about the soul. Right now, we just have had a belief in the soul, say during the time of the sixth ray in the age of Pisces. What is said is for the seventh ray is that we will have more direct knowledge. We will be working with the soul. So it's there will be no, in the future, there will be no separation. There won't be the judgmental energies that we live with in the 3D world. We are all connected, and that will become much more prominent in our thinking. So that's really a quick.
Thank you. You know what? I just love this conversation with you. I would love to have you back on again in the future, even to get into.
Great.
I know you wrote the first book a while ago, and even more about this. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I know my audience is going to love this once they watch this show. So,
Great.
where can people buy your books? Where can they get a hold of you? Do you have anything coming up in the future that you want to share?
It's on Amazon. I was thinking it's on Barnes and Noble. So for the US and I think Canada, Amazon, it's Waterstones in the UK is another supplier. Do I have anything coming up in the future right now? Because this book hasn't been out. Was out the end of March, so I've just had a couple of months now where I've been doing lots of things like some interviews and writing articles for magazines because I've just given birth and now I'm just nurturing this baby out into the world. So I haven't really got past that stage yet. Maybe I'll do more things, but they'll be on probably. I've got a website, so that is www.debbiesellwood with 2 L's.com. And I'm on Facebook, so I would always communicate something that I'm doing on Facebook as well.
Perfect. Like I said, I'd love to have you on again in the future and talk more about this. I really enjoyed having you on, so thank you for being here. And I want to let everybody know, if you're tuning in and you're just hitting the end of this and you're going, why is Lorilei not saying hello? Why is she not highlighting her comments? This was pre-recorded a little bit earlier because Debbie's over in the UK and it's quite late when we go live. So it will be live. It's a new show. So just so you all know that. Also, if you ever want to get a hold of me to book a reading, an energy healing session, I do teaching and mentoring. You can get a hold of me on facebook.com/The Angel Rock. I am in the process of working on a domain name and a website. It's time. I do have a website, but it's such a long name. I don't even usually give it out. And I've been working on that behind the scenes too. I also have 2 groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for more things paranormal, the Angel Rocker Tribe for almost all of the concepts Debbie and I talked about tonight and more. Also, don't forget, I'll be back Thursday with my amazing co-host and friend David Hansel with The Thing at the Foot of the Bed, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And don't forget about the group for that show. The reason why we started the group, because 80% of our listening audience is audio only. And we do share a lot of clips, a lot of pictures and stuff. So we put it in the group so everybody can find it after. When we get to 200 people, we're just over 100 and the group hasn't been up too long, David and I are going to start going live in that group, whether it's to hang out with all of you, answer a few questions, maybe do a couple card pulls, oracle card deck pulls, or whatever it may be. So I did not get a chance to peek at who's coming on next week, but it's going to be an amazing guest because they're always like, not Debbie, but I mean, amazing guests like her. So I want to thank you all for being here, sending you all much love and light always. And again, thank you, Debbie.
It's been an honor to be with you.
Well, thank you for being here. And we will see you on Thursday. And I will see you same time, same space, live next week here on UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Have a good one, everybody.